Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into Voice Global 2020. I'm Bours, the head of marketing at Jairo, and today I'll be taking you through conversational AI's role in digital transformation in healthcare. It would be impossible to cover this topic without a spotlight on the most care crisis in over a century, which of course is COVID-19. Conveniently for this presentation, we at Jairo actually found ourselves at the intersection of the pandemic, conversational AI, as well as emerging technologies in healthcare, when we created a virtual assistant that became quite helpful and popular for healthcare systems across the United States and beyond. But before I dive into the COVID-19 initiative and some of the interesting data that we've pulled, I wanted to give some background on the company it came from and talk about the growing reliance of healthcare on digital services in general. Patients are becoming increasingly tech savvy and much more accustomed to managing their daily tasks online or through virtual assistants like Google Assistant and smart speakers like Alexa, fostering habits and expectations by interacting digitally with retail and travel brands, to name just two examples. Patients have come to expect the same standard of service and experiences from their healthcare providers. And healthcare providers are meeting their patients' demands at an incredible pace. Juniper Research, in a recent report, forecasted that AI-powered chatbots will soon become the first responders for engagements with healthcare providers, as the number of chatbots interactions is expected to exceed 2.8 billion annually by 2023. This is up from an estimated 21 million in 2018, so that's an average annual growth of 167%. The World Economic Forum and other leading bodies are even leading global initiatives to design governance around AI chatbots to encourage companies to develop these types of tools for healthcare providers. So it's clear that these are really important. And there are other stats in this slide as well to discuss how companies and patients both believe that these are the right tools to implement in order to better their relationships. So it's clear that, that there's a demand and a desire to deploy conversational AI, but most companies cannot muster the resources necessary to implement these solutions and scale them accordingly. There are a bunch of obstacles when it comes to deploying conversational interfaces that are accurate and truly have high understanding rates. And some of those are that they're expensive and time consuming, that they require natural language processing or machine learning expertise, as well as mountains of data or predefined intents and pre-trained data. And the other is that there's limited scalability. So it's if you deploy in one use case a conversational interface that yields positive results, it doesn't always mean that you can then convert other use cases and have the same success there. And if you do, you might have to start from scratch if you don't use the correct solutions. Enter Jairo. So we are a plug-and-play conversational AI platform that allows healthcare enterprises to quickly add voice and chat capabilities to their digital channels, whether that's websites, apps, or call centers. With robust natural language understanding, we enable patients to have these two-way conversations that simplify their access to information and medical care, while we help enterprises optimize the deliverability of content that drives revenue and creates true value for their patients. Jairo provides frictionless deployment and maintenance processes by automatically building a knowledge graph out of existing content, and it's without any integrations or playbooks or training data, empowering major healthcare systems like Mercy Health, Mount Sinai, Austin Regional Clinic, and Weill Medicine to converse easily, convert more, and of course collect actionable patient insights along the way. One of the major differences for us as a conversational solution is the ability to automatically build a knowledge graph out of pre-existing data, creating dialogue that can be truly context elastic. So whereas typical solutions like are made of these rigid chat, flowcharts, and they need to be constantly updated, Jairo offers the flexibility to learn faster and go further with your data, and we don't put any of that heavy lifting on the client. So here's a good example of limit intent-based flows versus open intent-less conversations. And of course, we are the ones to the right with the knowledge graph. And you can see that's actually a real depiction of a knowledge graph just for the word neurology in healthcare. And because we have this knowledge graph, again, the learning that's required are only a few dozens of examples versus thousands of examples needed per intent if you use a typical flowchart for a chatbot. So within conversational AI, there are of quite a few interfaces, and we typically operate as a hybrid, offering both voice and text capabilities. We believe that voice is the future, but at present needs to be a facet of the offering and not this spoon-fed focus. And what I mean by that is that voice capabilities should be included alongside and not instead of text and chat. So desktop users will continue to prefer to type, and mobile users will continue to adopt voice-based action, especially with the omnipresence of these complementary goods like AirPods, guilty as charged. And it's important to try and be a hybrid solution and allow voice to gradually take its natural place in the evolution of conversational technologies. So we really believe that it's important to be the ones in the middle and enable both kinds of mediums. So how does this relate to COVID-19? So we knew that our type of solution could help instantly based on all the aforementioned capabilities. We knew in March from friends, partners, and clients alike in healthcare that health communication channels were about to face a massive spike in traffic, and without the necessary digital initiatives in place to service those kinds of daunting numbers. So as concern over the spread of the virus grew, patients adhering to social distancing measures were already turning en masse to healthcare providers' digital channels. And we saw that this was creating significant backlogs in medical care, access, as well as testing. In March, the Washington Post reported a more than double increase in waiting times for call centers and crisis hotlines. Sorry about that, just a second. In March, the Washington Post reported a more than double increase in waiting times for call centers and crisis hotlines, and that's only intensified since. Additionally, the vacuum created by the disruption of patient-doctor relationship encouraged the proliferation of fake news, misinformation, as well as confusion. We saw, based on the Bruno Kessler Foundation, when they analyzed over 112 million tweets, that COVID-19 related information from unreliable sources accounted for up to 30% of overall posts during that time period. So 30% of all the tweets that were going out were actually based on misinformation surrounding COVID-19, which is an astronomically high figure. So sourcing that verified information became more critical than ever. So to help healthcare organizations achieve overnight digital transformation, in order to overcome these types of challenges, we created a free COVID-19 virtual assistant with both voice and text capabilities, equipping patients with easily accessible and actionable information surrounding the coronavirus. The data provided is based on certified resources and freely available information developed by the CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, as well as the World Health Organization, and the client's healthcare database as well, if our healthcare providers had their own resources for COVID-19. The COVID-19 virtual assistant has already helped answer hundreds of thousands of common questions about COVID-19, like what are the symptoms for the coronavirus? How can I protect myself? How is the virus transmitted? Where can I get tested? And so forth. Unlike standard FAQs and chat solutions for COVID-19, patients can type or speak a question of interest or intent using their own phrasings, terms, slang, and so forth. And by implementing natural language understanding capabilities, the virtual assistant continuously understands and then guides patients throughout this process, regardless of their varying styles of vernacular. So we wanted it to be a really elastic solution that anyone in the United States or beyond could really engage with in their own style and their own language. The assistant also helped navigate patients to COVID-19 content, as well as perform symptom triaging and risk assessment, which is again a tool that we were able to source from the CDC. Healthcare providers could see in real time how patients were interacting with their data and also what their patients were asking about. So you see in this slide a split screen, and on the one you have a patient view, so how the patient sees our UI and how they're able to interact with the conversational interface. And on the other, you actually see the administrative view, so how the healthcare providers themselves are seeing this conversation logged in real time, and what are our answers, and what are also the click events, the different utterances, whether they're using desktop or mobile, whether they're using voice or text. So the ability to show them this data in real time was also incredibly important for healthcare providers that were still learning how to deal with this virus and how to properly, source the information from the CDC as well as other databases, and tell their patients what the correct next steps are. So, being able to see how this resulted in conversions and how patients interacted with the assistant, minute to minute, was truly pivotal for them. I'd now like to play a short demo of risk assessment in action. And this is using a trifecta of voice, text, and suggestion clicks. The whole thing is accessible through voice, but we wanted to show that we're versatile as a conversational interface. So here we go.
So today, Zeev, in this case patient X, is going to demonstrate how the assistant moves from initial symptom triaging to CDC-based risk assessment for COVID-19. And you'll see that we can toggle between text and voice and button clicks so the patient can really choose their preferred method of interaction. So let's start.
Yeah, I have a mild headache.
Have you traveled during the past 14 days? If so, to which locations?
Yes, I just got back from Paris.
When did you last come back from your latest travel destination?
About 3 days ago.
Have you been in prolonged contact with someone with suspected coronavirus?
Okay, so as you can see, we were able to process all of the information that Zeev had given us about his previous travels as well as his symptoms, and return results that are based on the CDC's own risk assessment guidelines, which is that his risk for having coronavirus is medium. We also give a button which allows to read more about next steps and take action.
Great. So that was just a small glimpse of the capabilities of the assistant. This was actually V1. We've since upgraded at this point to a V4 of the COVID-19 virtual assistant. And again, this was free for any healthcare provider, as well as universities we had deploying this kind of solution. So that was just a glimpse of it in action. And again, you could see that, that we were using voice, but we could also do button clicks or the entire thing via text. So we wanted to keep it as versatile as possible. Now I want to move on to what kind of insights we were able to gather from this type of solution and what that meant for the healthcare provider. So beyond engagement, and arguably the most important aspect of conversational AI are these actionable insights that are generated from the conversational data. And in this case, the data collected operated almost like a real-time barometer for patient priorities and concerns during COVID-19. The ability to automatically extract these analytics has been essential in assisting healthcare professionals with optimizing the deliverability of their services and content based on validated patient demand. So really, the ability to show them via a dashboard what kind of topics are most popular, et cetera, has led to some of these healthcare providers knowing exactly what their patients, on average, from a sample size, are looking for in times of crises. And we found that to be extremely helpful, and the feedback was pretty positive. So overall, you can see, and this is month-over-month data from May to June. So you can see that 71% of the conversations from all our deployments revolved around COVID-19. That means that there's obviously 29% of people that were interacting with the assistant that actually wanted help with medical care totally beyond the context of COVID-19, which we didn't expect. And even though we were very clear and transparent from the get-go of what the bot was capable of, we had many requests from patients that were actually out of scope. But what that did was, of course, inspire healthcare professionals to add these kinds of services to their site. But anyway, so we saw that 71% were asking about COVID-19, and of those of those that were asking for COVID-19. So 23%, as you can see here, were asking about general COVID-19 information, and that would prompt us to then answer the question using information that we'd scraped, again, from the CDC or the WHO. Accordingly, the third top suggestion click and service requested, and this is either via click or open dialogue, was to speak with someone directly. So 20% of patients actually wanted to get someone on the phone immediately. And what we did was then direct that person to the healthcare organization's COVID-19 hotline, which 9 out of 10 had something like that already set up. Surprisingly, 33% represented other topics within COVID-19, which weren't anticipated by us or the healthcare organization in terms of popularity. And I'm going to get to that now on the next slide. So our research reveals that testing is a major point of concern for patients, and the prevalence of this topic across all healthcare organizations cannot be overstated. So according to our analysis, 56% of all the other COVID-19 related issues that were beyond the suggestion clicks that we provided revolved around the topic of tests. Moreover, of all the test-related conversations, we saw that 28% started to mention the term antibody testing. So again, this is May, and this is further along into the COVID-19 period, and people were already querying about, antibodies, et cetera. So beyond also just understanding different segmentation of conversations, we also took from strictly terms that were mentioned, and we were able to feed that to the hospital. So we also looked at most popular terms, and the ones that were, of course, most popular that you can see in this graph here were test, tested, and testing. So of a sample size of around 3K conversations, we were able to derive that those were the most popular words being used, followed by COVID-19 itself, followed by antibody, followed by results, which of course also deals with testing. They wanted to know, how do I get my results? If my results were negative, then do I need to ever get tested again? Things of that nature. And another thing we did is highlight certain conversations that we thought were particularly interesting for these healthcare organizations. So one of these I added here, which is specifically about antibody testing. So does X hospital administer the antibody test? Questions about plasma. I've already tested negative for antibodies. Does that mean I don't have it? So you have all these different examples of real patient conversations, real engagement with the virtual assistant, again, either by voice or text. And these are real people looking for answers. So of the non-COVID-19 related topics, the most popular revolved around scheduling an appointment at 28%. That followed by general information, so just overall healthcare questions, not specific to COVID-19 or anything for that matter. And then again, speaking with someone, we saw consistent at 22%. So we, on average, find that 1 out of 5 people that come to the healthcare website, or at least engaging with the chatbot, want to speak directly to a person. So that was also important, I think, to relay to the healthcare organizations that these people are looking for immediate assistance and not necessarily just some kind of information. Other patients were inquiring about telemedicine, which we know is a ballooning topic in healthcare, right? The ability to have a doctor appointment online or over the phone or via video call, prescription refills, billing, symptoms triaging, beyond COVID-19, and even career opportunities. We had people asking the assistant whether or not they could volunteer to help out on the front lines, or just in general if the hospital was hiring. And although none of these conversations pertain directly to COVID-19, the data demonstrates this growing demand catalyzed by this crisis to inquire about and acquire medical services digitally. Ultimately, there's widespread confidence among a lot of the healthcare executives that we've spoken to that the impact this pandemic has had on digital transformation will be everlasting. And I think that's a perfect segue, honestly, to move into the three major segments for healthcare in terms of use cases that at least we as a company that focuses on conversational and healthcare are categorized as the top three. So that's patient access, care delivery, and care management. So essentially what that is setting up care and making it accessible is patient access, delivering that care on different mediums, being able to be omni-channel, so call center support and telehealth, and then also allowing patients to easily manage their digital services, and sometimes you need assistance for that. So maybe looking at previous prescriptions that you've had and renewing those, maybe accessing your membership portal to get some of your medical information, so things of that nature. And there are a plethora of use cases that aren't on this list, and we're constantly learning and adding more. So healthcare, really the sky is, the sky's the limit in terms of where we can go with conversational AI in this particular vertical. And to give one key example of how voice and text technologies are helping healthcare providers beyond COVID-19, I chose to share a glimpse at one of our deployments with Weill Cornell Medicine, in which patients are using both chat and voice to find doctors and book appointments. So concurrently, Weill Cornell is benefiting from increased engagement with patients, as well as higher rates of appointment bookings online. And here you can see that we've increased the conversion rate for appointments by 46%, just by deploying a conversational interface that patients can then engage with in order to ease them through this process. To give a little more background, so Weill Cornell actually has already online scheduling. It's not like it doesn't exist. It's more about navigating the patients to find it and allowing them to also choose their medium. So instead of search or going through page links, now they can use, again, voice or text to find these kinds of services. So this was just, again, one example of that. And then, that was just an individual use case for a healthcare provider, but we have notable deployments across many different organizations. Some are based in IT services, others are, again, based in more consumer facing, so helping to find doctors and book appointments. But Jairo has really found its footing in helping a lot of these healthcare organizations achieve seamless and fast digital transformation, at least when it comes to conversational interfaces and extracting actionable conversational data. So while Jairo is vertical agnostic in terms of our own technologies, we know that healthcare is ripe for digital transformation that truly moves the needle, and conversational AI is the springboard to take it much higher. A stellar patient journey starts with us. Thanks for tuning in. To find out more about conversational AI and Jairo, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or by email, or visit us at www.jairo.ai. Again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and I hope I've done justice to digital transformation in healthcare. Keep well, everybody, stay safe, and enjoy the rest of the summit. Thanks, Voice Global. Thanks, listeners.